With the election coming up on June 7th, last night was Ontario's first leader debate between Ontario Liberal leader and current Premier Kathleen Wynne, Ontario PC leader Doug Ford, and Ontario NDP leader Andrea Horwath. Now, somebody who was not invited to this debate was Ontario Green Party leader Mike Schreiner, who actually there was a protest outside of the debate at City TV that was led by Tim Grant, who's a Green candidate for University Rosedale. So while the Green Party was not invited, they at least had some voter representation outside the actual debate location. Now, I'm going to show you a series of clips here. So before I get into it, this debate was kind of all over the place. There wasn't really any actual debate about policy differences. So there were a lot of shots, especially between Doug Ford and Kathleen Wynne. There were some good answers within the debate, mostly from Andrea Horwath and occasionally from Kathleen Wynne. Doug Ford was Doug Ford. And unfortunately, the majority of my clips I'm going to show you here focus on Doug Ford, and that's because the guy's such a goofball, and it's so easy to rebuke the things he says because he is constantly lying and being hypocritical and just not making any sense. Now, to give you a little primer, I'm going to play their opening statements, all three of them, and just this will give you an idea of who these candidates are and what they represent.
I have to say I'm very excited to be here this evening to show folks that to this election, you really can choose change for the better. As we enter this campaign period, we have people lined up in hospital hallways. We have a hydro system that's been sold off and the bills are skyrocketing. People are feeling the squeeze. Families are having a harder and harder time making a go of it. But it absolutely does not have to be this way. We can have a government that makes sure that our hospitals are there for people when they need them, that our schools are in a good state of repair, that people can get the dental care and the prescription drugs that they need, that families can afford child care. These are changes for the better. Mr. Ford is going to offer more cuts, which will only make life harder. It doesn't have to be that way. You can have a premier in our province that puts the people at the heart of every single decision that she makes, and that's my plan for the province of Ontario. Welcome tonight.
All right, Kathleen Wynne. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for being here, and all of the folks at home. Thank you for watching. When I came into this office in 2013 and then was re-elected in 2014, I made a commitment to the people of Ontario that I would build this province up, and I've been doing that every single day. We have built 800 schools, 24 new hospitals. There is transit being built all around the province, roads and bridges. The economy is growing faster than other parts of the country, faster than the United States, and our unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in nearly 20 years. So we need to continue, and the next thing that we need to do is put more care in place for people. People who are looking for mental health supports for their children, folks who are looking for child care, people who are looking for care for their elderly parents. Those care pieces need to be in place, and that's exactly what our platform lays out. There's a very stark contrast that people are going to see in this election. It's a contrast between a care plan and a cut plan that Doug Ford is bringing forward. That's the choice.
And that's time. Doug Ford.
Yeah, thank you. After 15 years of Liberal mismanagement, scandal, and waste, it's time for change. We have seen this Liberal government make sure that they've taken care of their Liberal insider friends and Liberal insiders, lobbyists. But we can tell you one thing, my friends. We will make sure we bring government that's going to respect the taxpayers. You know me, I'm for the little guy. I will make sure my priorities are reducing the wait times in hospitals, straightening out the hydro mess, creating good paying jobs, and putting money back into your pocket. I will bring accountability, transparency, and integrity back to the people of Ontario. We will make sure we run a government for the people. Time for change.
All right. Let me address each of these leaders in reverse order. Doug Ford. This guy is such a dummy. So, look, I'm going to show you more clips from this debate, but throughout the whole debate, he was just, it's like a C-minus high school student wandered onto the debate stage and is now up there with two politicians that know what they're doing. Now, I know some of you are going to say, but Kathleen Wynne, well, look what she's doing. I get it. But just in terms of knowing what the hell you're talking about, just in terms of talking about, you know, your actual platform, the facts, what you stand for, and charisma-wise. So there's a lot of comparisons between Doug Ford and Trump, and I understand some of them. I've made some of those comparisons, but there's a major difference here. Donald Trump actually has some charisma. Doug Ford has no charisma. Doug Ford is, it's sad. I almost feel bad making fun of him. Like, I want to call him a loser, but it's like calling the dumb kid in class a loser. Like, I don't want to make him feel bad. So it's just, I don't understand how people are buying him. I don't get it. He's vague in everything he says. He wants to improve all public services, yet reduce spending and cut $6 billion out of the budget. Like, this just is not logical. It's not rational. Now, let's go to Wynne. So, Kathleen Wynne, look, I'm not a huge fan of Kathleen Wynne either, but she knows what she's talking about, at the very least. So, Kathleen Wynne, at least in her opening statement, she was well-spoken. She's more specific on issues, and she's trying to frame this race as liberals versus PC. Even though right now in polling, the NDP have gained significantly, and it appears that the NDP are actually in a steady second place behind Doug Ford's PCs. So while Wynne is trying to frame this as PC versus liberal because she's the premier and Doug Ford is her biggest competitor right now, the fact is it may actually come down to Horwath and Ford. So keep that in mind. Now, Horwath, her opening statements here are fine. She's more positive, more specific. She's has a very people-focused campaign. But throughout this debate, I didn't think she had a great showing either. But like the bar is so low. Doug Ford has set the bar so low that Wynne and Horwath just appearing to be normal politicians makes them actually look good. When really there were some answers that I really don't agree with Horwath and Wynne on. But with Ford, it's hard to have a position because Ford either doesn't know what he's talking about or doesn't have a position or has gone back and forth on positions. So there's more clips coming, but I have to mention this because I don't think I included it in my clips. Ford has been talking about the one issue that I agreed with Doug Ford on is that he wants to actually open up legalized cannabis to privatization, allow private business to sell cannabis. But during this debate, he completely reversed. He said, no, I didn't say that. Actually, I'm just for putting cannabis in liquor stores, in LCBOs, which are government-run stores. So the one issue where he actually somewhat made sense, he's now reversed on. And he's done this a number of times. So who the hell... This is where the comparison to Trump makes sense. Because like Trump has been on the position or on different sides of almost every issue, Doug Ford is now getting to that same point where he's switching positions on every issue. You can't trust this guy. Now, let's go to the first or the second clip here. And this is where Doug Ford is asked about his plan to privatize pretty much everything.
My question is for you, Mr. Ford. You've talked very proudly about how you will leave no stone unturned in your quest to privatize everything possible across all ministries, and that you are going to cut the minimum of $6 billion out of public services. I'd like to know, what are you going to privatize in our healthcare system, Is it going to be, dialysis, for example? And exactly how many hospitals are you going to close? How many nurses are going to be laid off because of your cuts?
Well, first of all, I don't.
45 seconds starting now.
Okay, Andrea, I appreciate your question there, but I don't believe, that's not my vocabulary. I believe in driving efficiencies, respecting the taxpayers. Unlike my two opponents here, they've never found savings in the government. You truly believe the government under Kathleen Wynne is really efficient, I guess. Do you agree that's very efficient?
I've never said
Do you
that.
believe that, my friends at home, do you believe there's 4 cents on the dollar for every dollar the government wastes? So I guess, Andrea, you truly believe there's no efficiency to be had. None. I believe there's a better way of delivering services, more efficient way of delivering services. The difference between myself and my two opponents, they've never found a penny of savings.
And
we
that's
found
time?
over $1 billion of savings for the taxpayers.
Okay. This line that Doug Ford ends with, we saved over $1 billion for the city of Toronto. This is a stat that both Doug Ford and his late brother, the former mayor of Toronto, Rob Ford, have used multiple times. They always say, oh yeah, we saved $1 billion for Toronto. This has been debunked over and over and over again, yet they still use it. It was debunked by their own city staff. They did not save $1 billion for Toronto. That is just a straight up lie. And it's a good ending to the rest of the answer because he never answered anything. So this is the problem with Doug Ford. It's hard to pin down what the hell he's about. So he's talked about, privatization. We're going to privatize this, privatize that. But then he's like, oh no, we're going to strengthen public services. There's more efficient ways to do it. You can't both improve services and cut funding. It's one or the other. This has been tried multiple times. This idea has been sold to people over and over again, and they keep buying it. You can't fall for it again. You cannot improve services and cut funding. It's one or the other. So do you want services cut, or do you want more funding into services and improved services? Those are your positions. Doug Ford pretends you can do both, and you can't. Now, look, he was vague. He didn't actually answer the question. This is who Doug Ford is, and it's infuriating to cover him because, to me, this is all so obvious. This is the same reason why I don't cover Donald Trump. Because to me, it's so obvious that Donald Trump is full of shit. It's so obvious he's lying. If you just follow what the things that Trump has said or Doug Ford has said. They've gone back and forth on different issues. They take multiple positions on every issue. So whatever you want to see about the candidate, you'll see. If you want to see that Doug Ford wants to privatize cannabis, you'll see that. If you want to see that Doug Ford actually wants to keep it public, you'll see that. So there are multiple positions. If you want to see that Doug Ford wants to improve public services or improve healthcare, you'll see that. If you want to see that Doug Ford wants to cut spending, you'll see that. But taken as a whole, you can view that this person is full of shit. Just like Donald Trump is full of shit, Doug Ford is full of shit. Now, on that note, more Doug Ford. So here's Kathleen Wynne asking Doug Ford how his cuts in funding will lead to job cuts.
Why would you put all those jobs at risk? One economist has said 75,000 jobs. Why would you do that and do it in order to give the richest people in the province a tax cut? Why? How do you justify all of those jobs and all of those people for a tax cut for the richest people in the province?
Oh, Kathleen, you know that's disingenuous what you just said, because when I talk to the teachers, all they talk is about, hey, you don't listen to them. And when I talk to the nurses and doctors, they're constantly telling me how you've beaten them down for the last 6 years, that you're ignoring them. Matter of fact, when it comes to teachers, I'm going to have a group of teachers actually help us with the curriculum. When it comes to doctor and healthcare, I'm going to have a group of doctors, which we have already, headed up by Dr. Ruben Devlin, former CEO of Humber River Hospital. We'll have other doctors throughout this province that actually tell us how to run a more efficient healthcare system. You have a bunch of politicians that don't have a clue about teaching and don't have a clue about healthcare.
So, Doug,
my question
was, how can you justify cutting thousands and thousands of jobs. Because have you had that conversation when you talk to the nurses?
No,
We're going to cut 13,000.
That's time. We're now going to start. We're now going to start our 3 minutes of open debate.
Once again, Doug Ford doesn't actually answer the question. He has to cut, if he's going to cut spending, $6 billion out of the budget, he has to cut jobs. He has to. So either he's lying about the cuts or he's lying that he's not cutting jobs. It's one or the other. Like, there's an evil part of me that wants to see Doug Ford win just so I can show you, that we all can show you. All of you that think that Doug Ford is this big winner, that think Doug Ford is going to do amazing things, you can see for yourself that Doug Ford is going to fuck up everything. He's going to make it much worse than it currently is. It's, how many ways can I say it? You can't cut spending and improve services. It's just not going to happen. So the other part of his answer there where he's like, oh, I've talked to the doctors, I've talked to teachers, you haven't given them Do you really think any government, whether it's the Liberals, the PCs, or the NDP, do you really think any of them are creating a curriculum without talking to teachers? Do you really think that? Do you really think any of these governments are improving healthcare services or doing whatever they want to healthcare services without talking to doctors? Do you really think that? So that's where Kathleen Wynne here failed. She could have completely rebuked what Doug Ford said about how he's talking to teachers, I'm talking to doctors, and you were going to do this and that. She could have rebuked it by saying, look, Ford, Mr. Doug, Mr. Doug Ford, do you really think I created the sex ed curriculum or the math curriculum without talking to teachers? Do you really think that? Are you that fucking stupid? Clearly she couldn't say fucking stupid, but that that should have been the feeling behind it. Because it's so stupid. All right. Let's go to, here. How about a funny moment? How about that? So this was the funniest / weirdest moment of the night. Let's just watch it.
Doug Ford, it is your turn. Who are you going to put on the hot seat?
Well, I'm going to ask my friend Kathleen the question. Kathleen, you got a nice smile on your face there. Kathleen.
So do you.
When does the clock start?
I'll start it right now, and that's probably the friendliest moment we will have.
My question is very simply, when did you lose your way?
What the hell was that? Look, God. You know, if Doug Ford at least had some charisma or was like not just a complete dummy, I could understand why some people like him. But what was that? Now, some people are bothered by the question or bothered by the fact that he mentioned her smile. It doesn't bother me. It's just weird. So every candidate here had an opportunity to ask someone else a question. This was Doug Ford's turn. Clearly, he had no idea what he was going to ask. And he was buying time and saw that Kathleen Wynne was smiling. Oh, you have a great smile on your face. He lost his train of thought. He didn't know what he was actually going to ask. And that's why this whole thing happened. And then the question he actually went to ask was, Kathleen Wynne, how did you lose your way? That was his question. It wasn't about any policy. It wasn't about, even selling off hydro or about spending or anything. No. How did you lose your way, Kathleen? Oh my God. I can't. This guy, I can't with him. He's just so terrible at everything. And I feel bad. Like the liberal in me feels bad for Doug Ford because he's so stupid. Now, I guess I'll go to closing statements. So, I could have showed you more from this debate, but again, they were standard answers. They were like the kind of thing you can go and look at their platform. I could go and read NDP's platform and see what they're about. I can read Kathleen's platform and see what she's about. I could could listen to one sentence from Doug Ford and know what he's about. So there just wasn't much good from this debate. I found it entertaining because I'm super into politics, but it was more entertaining from an entertaining factor and not from me actually learning anything. So let me just play these closing remarks. And again, this gives you a clear contrast of who these candidates are, especially when it comes to Doug Ford versus the other two.
So I want to thank Citi. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Thank you to everyone who was here and everyone who watched. This is going to be a very important election debate over the next 28 or 29 days. And there are some pretty stark choices. As you heard tonight, there are very different perspectives. We've got a perspective on my right here that is about cutting and finding what he's calling efficiencies, but will amount to cuts that will hurt people, that will hurt services. We've got some magical thinking on my left here about how things can just magically happen without actually having the policy that is going to make it work. So I would just say to the people of the province, please ask your candidates. Look at what we have done. Look at what we are building, and we are going to continue to build in this province. It is about care. It is about making sure that the care that people need is actually in place, or it's about cuts. It's about cutting services that people need. That's what this election is about.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Andrea Horwath, you have 60 seconds.
Thanks very much, and I'm glad folks had a chance to tune in to see exactly what's in store in the campaign. While Mr. Ford and Ms. Wynne fought about who's going to make the worst Premier of Ontario, I think this election's our opportunity to do something completely different. We don't have to choose between bad and worse. We can actually have change for the better in our province. Just imagine a province where everyone can afford the prescription drugs that they're prescribed by their doctor. Imagine a province where people can get their dental work done, where we own more of and pay less for our hydro system, where young families can not only afford a home, but they can afford the childcare that they need, where we have a seniors care system that offers our seniors dignity. That, for me, is not just a dream, that's a plan. And you can help make that happen. Together, we can change this province for the better on June 7th. I hope you're with me. Thank you.
And Mr. Ford, you have 60 seconds.
Well, after 15 years of mismanagement, scandals, and waste of your hard-earned tax dollars, the Liberal government is desperate to hold on to power, to continue lining the pockets of their friends and their Liberal insiders. I'm going to make sure we run a government that respects the taxpayers. You know me, I'm for the little guy. My priorities have been very clear. I'm going to make sure that we reduce the wait lines at hospitals. I'm going to make sure that we put money back into your pocket, clean up the hydro mess, and make sure we reduce taxes. We will create a government for the people. We will bring accountability, transparency, and integrity back to the great taxpayers of Ontario. Thank you.
Okay. I think there's a pretty clear distinction here. Once again, Doug Ford seems like he just wandered onto the stage, and Kathleen Wynne and Andrea Horwath actually have a platform. They know what's in it, and they've discussed it, and they have, surprisingly, a little more charisma, at least a little more charisma than Doug Ford does. Now, some specifics there. So Kathleen Wynne mentions how the NDP they're magical thinking because they want to have all this spending. The NDP platform breaks down their spending, breaks down how they're paying for it. So it's not magical. Now, this whole debate, I think that was maybe Kathleen Wynne's only shot at the NDP. And it's because she wants to make this race between her and Doug Ford. But if Kathleen Wynne continues to gain ground, she's going to have to address Andrea Horwath, who, the Liberal Party is known for stealing their ideas from the NDP. because that's how they are able to get a lot of progressives to vote for them. But if Horwath continues to gain, and it looks like she is the real choice between if you want to beat Doug Ford, then she's got to figure out a new plan, or maybe just allow Horwath to take this one, because you don't want Doug Ford leading the province. Now, a couple things I want to say on Horwath, just because it wasn't really talked about too much. The NDP are promising a universal pharmacare plan and a universal dental plan. So, you know, based on platform alone, take the leaders out of it. Based on the platform, I think NDP has by far and away the best platform. Now, if you want to, you know, discuss who's the better leader here, I do think that Andrea Horwath appears to be at least getting to a position to be a great leader. Kathleen Wynne, I think at this point, she comes off as a leader. She knows what she's talking about, even if you don't agree with what everything she's done. And Doug Ford is just doesn't deserve to be on the stage. So I can't believe that Doug Ford is in this. I'm a little speechless. So here, just I guess one thing or two things on Doug Ford. He talks about how, oh, I'm for the little guy. I'm for the little guy. Mr. Ford, if you're for the little guy, why are you the only candidate that is against raising the minimum wage, which for some reason didn't really come up during this debate? How are you for the little guy? You want to reduce taxes for the rich and not increase the minimum wage. I think it's pretty clear who you actually are for. And not to mention, I had a recent story where Doug Ford was caught on video discussing a backroom deal that he had with developers. So Doug Ford, he comes from the world of being rich. He inherited his business from his dad. His dad was in government. He has had all the connections, all the benefits in the world, and then he pretends to be against the elites when he himself is an elite. Now, two more issues that I didn't talk about so far. Drugs. So drugs were brought up in terms of cannabis legalization and how the province is going to deal with it. So I kind of touched on that. Doug Ford had said that he was going to allow cannabis to be sold in corner stores or in private stores, and now he's not. So who knows where the hell he actually sits on this issue. I don't like Andrea Horwath's position on this. Again, there's all this focus on safety and keeping it away from kids and crime. How about the people that have drug offenses on their record? There's no talk about that. No talk about ending marijuana drug possession charges or helping the people that have already been criminalized for it. And no focus or no discussion on the benefits of having a privatized portion of cannabis sales. No discussion at all about that. So, look, that issue aside, the other part of the drug discussion was on safe injection sites. Doug Ford, once again, doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He's against safe injection sites, even though all the evidence shows that they help. I have a whole video on this. I don't want to go through the whole thing again. But look, think about how hard of a sale it is to say, you know what, if we give people drugs, it's going to help their lives. Think how hard that sale is. So clearly the evidence is there because we have these injection sites. They're in Vancouver, they're here. They help people get off these drugs, and it's because they're done safely in a supervised area by a nurse. So they're injecting to ensure they're injecting safely, to ensure they are not overdosing, and to help them get to the next steps of getting off of that addiction. So safe injection sites or supervised injection sites work, and Doug Ford is the only candidate against them. Now, one thing I want to mention on hydro before I get to the reaction of this debate and who people thought, or who viewers and the media thought won this debate. On hydro, Doug Ford keeps attacking Kathleen Wynne on the privatization of hydro. So 60% of hydro was sold off. Doug Ford is all about privatization. He would have done the exact same thing. In fact, it would have been all of hydro. Now, he keeps attacking Wynne for the CEO salary of Hydro One CEO. She has no control over that anymore. Hydro is now private. Doug Ford is saying that he will fire fire Hydro's CEO. He can't. Hydro is a private organization. He can't fire the CEO. So, look, I don't understand how people buy this shit. Just do a little reading. Look, I didn't know that you couldn't fire the Hydro CEO until I read about it. If you just read a little bit, you'll figure out that, hey, maybe this Doug Ford guy is full of shit. All right, time to go to reaction. So, after this debate, before the debate happened, City News Toronto put out a poll asking viewers who you support. Doug Ford had the majority of support, followed by Andrea Horwath and Kathleen Wynne. After the debate, they put out another poll, and these were the results. Doug Ford is in second. So Andrea Horwath got the highest amount of votes with 43%, with Kathleen Wynne in a distant third at 14%. Now, this reaction was similar to the media reaction, which also thought that Horwath won the debate. So this is from Maclean's, where Tom Parkin writes, Andrea Horwath won the debate by letting Ford and Wynne bicker, with polls putting the party solidly in second place and Liberal voters considering anything but Ford. The NDP leader sees opportunity. And the Ottawa Citizen also put out this headline saying, Ontario election debate. Most, though not all, of our pundits give Horwath the win. And I pretty much agree. Now, I don't think Horwath had a great showing, but compared to Doug Ford, she looks incredible. And Kathleen Wynne, even though I think she had a pretty good showing, most people are just tired of her, or they're tired of the Liberals in general. The Liberal Party has been in control for the past 15 years. People want change. So that's why the PCs right now have a lot of support, because they have generally been seen as the alternative to the Liberal Party. But if people now can see that the NDP have a chance, they have a shot at actually winning and forming government on June 7th, then I think they have a shot at winning this. So, look, if you're watching my video, I hope you are at least somewhat woke on the subject. You're somewhat aware that Doug Ford talks out of both sides of his mouth, doesn't really know what the hell he's talking about, has been on multiple sides of every issue, talks about how we're going to improve services yet cut spending. I hope you know better. You should know better. We've seen this before. You can't do what Doug Ford is doing. He's just trying to be everybody's buddy, everyone's friend, trying to get everyone's vote. So if you want to hear something, you're going to hear it from Doug Ford. But look at him rationally. Listen to what he's saying. He is a complete charlatan. Just don't fall for that. Now, personally, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. So I think a lot of it depends on your riding. I didn't mention this earlier. I wish I did. If you're in Guelph, in the riding of Guelph, vote Green, because that is the one riding where they actually have a good shot at winning. That's leader Mike Schreiner's riding. So if you vote for Green in Guelph, there may actually finally be a Green Party seat in Ontario. Now, otherwise, look at the polling of where you live, or look at who has generally won in your area. Now, the Toronto area, like the downtown core and surrounding areas, there's a good shot that the NDP may actually make some serious gains there, especially if they continue to gain in the polls here. So I think NDP would be a safe bet in the majority of the GTA. Now, just don't vote for Doug Ford. Just don't vote for Doug Ford. Just don't, please don't. You're getting a charlatan. You're getting a phony. And you know what? If you vote for him and he wins, at the very least, I guess the one benefit is I'll be able to laugh in all your faces and prove to you how wrong you were once he destroys this province. And you know what? If I'm wrong, I will come out and admit it. If Doug Ford comes in and he's incredible, he's somehow cutting spending while improving services, while putting more into healthcare, more into public transit, I will come out and tell you that, you know what? I was wrong. You were right. Doug Ford is amazing. I was wrong the whole time. He somehow discovered a way to create money while also cutting it. Yeah, so I guess he knows magic. It's impressive. But I don't see that happening. So my advice right now is vote NDP unless you are in a real conservative versus liberal riding where it seems like the only shot for your riding is a conservative win or a liberal win. Then I would say I lean liberal. I very much lean liberal because I just can't imagine putting Doug Ford into government. Hey, if you like this video, hit that subscribe button below and consider throwing me a few bucks on Patreon at patreon.com/therationalnational or therationalnational.com/join.